Hello. Welcome back. DM Geezer Jim continuing along, man. Having some fun doing our readings today. Cuz honestly, we're getting to some of the cooler, more interesting, more gameplay driven NPCs as we get in. It's almost like it was by design. The first few NPCs introduce us to the day in, day out aspects. Some of the next NPCs introduce us to a lot more of the Planescape and Sigil driven concepts, and now we're starting to get into some of the meatier ones, some of the more interesting ones. They are going to be a little bit more specific in use, but in my opinion, the second half of the book, the latter part of it, the NPCs get outstanding. The stories get really cool. The things get creepy. A lot more adventure oriented NPCs as we get into it. So well, you're going to listen to me talk about the story after we're done. Sorry, I might be a little bit sound weird here. The cat decided to sit in for this one, but let's get into it. Our next up is going to be Parakk the Ratcatcher. In the 126th year of Factal Hasker's reign, I found my master Bilford dead this morning, in his bed. The meal tray clattered to the floor as I took a step backward, grabbing for the iron symbol of Zerathon around my neck. I grasped the cold metal and prayed, even as the killers, emerged from beneath the bed and swarmed atop the spilled peaches and strips of foraged flank. The rat, peered at me with 100 white, unblinking eyes, even as they tore at the broiled meat. I had read my master's notebook and knew full well the portent of the cranium rats. I cursed myself for misremembering my dagger and backed towards the door when I felt a voice. Stay, no fear. We bled this wizard to protect the us. He dreamed of the us and the god brain. But we dreamed of him and you. We know you. You are Githzerai, enemy of the god brain. To you we say, serve the us and live. Serve the us and bring pain and death to the god brain. Then my mind flared with pictures, images framed with licking flames. My first view of the foul ill-sensing, the great green god brain of the Illithids pulsating in the dark tunnels beneath the Outlands. Then came pictures of cranium rats, relaying to its secrets from every dark crack and corner of the plains. But as I watched, I felt the vermin strain under ill-sensine's enslaving chains, felt them rage as fiercely as my ancestors had against the chains of the hated mind flayers. And then I saw a single knot of rats, more thick than any pack before. 100 or more, aware at last of their own power, breaking their chains to act in fearsome union, soliciting my aid in the destruction of their former master, the same putrid master who enslaved my people millennia ago, and split our race forever in twain, Githzerai and Githyanki. Their words, the image, the request, all had occupied but a few seconds, enough, though, for the glory to seize my soul. For if I could do what countless Rockma bands could not, if I could shed the skin of my undistinguished life and stand reborn a savior, perhaps generations hence young Githzerai might wear my symbol around their necks. 2 months since. In Bilfar's employ I served but one lord, as of late I serve many. To the self-appointed nobles of Sigil I am simpleton called Parakk. The word means both servant and master in the Githzerai tongue. I could think of no other name more suited to my new life. Words of my service and my astounding success spreads quickly through the wards. As many as 5 times a day I hear an Urkin in the streets directing frightened couriers to my new accommodations in this swill pill called the Hive. Parakk the Ratcatcher? Aye, sir, he lives there across from Bottle and Jug. I'll point out his door for a copper. The messenger comes to me and pleads their case. So as many cranium rats as that? My, your employer does indeed have a problem. And I come running to the afflicted court, warehouse, or tavern to set the matter right. Yes, sir, I smile. Results guaranteed. No, I won't need that. You see, I send them through a shifting portal in the slags. A real pox to find that one is, to a pocket demi-plane, leaving them forever adrift in the swirling sea of the deep ethereal. A much kinder fate than they deserve, some say, but I have a way with them, sir. You'll see. The us cannot move through the streets, not even with magic or stealth, until the darkest hours just before and after anti-peak. It hides itself well in the harrowing ruins of the slag with illusions and specters. The coins I earn buy meat to feed its body. The rats I reap bring intelligence to feed its mind. And what of me? I've retrieved a small looking glass, ostensibly to keep my head and face clean shaven, but I find myself peering into it constantly. Does it show my deception, my undertaking? As always, my reflection says nothing. I study the same even features of the unremarkable countenance, the familiar sallow skin, the plain muddy eyes framed by the soiled hood of the brown robe. In those rare moments when I am able to find sleep, I dream that I look into the mirror and see my reflection stare back with rat-like eyes of opaque pearls. 5 months since? Yesterday I cleared out the mortuary. One wouldn't think the dustman would mind a few rodents amongst the corpses, but what sage can ever truly hope to fathom those quarrelsome social clubs called factions? One of the so-called dead thanked me for coming, and well I noted the doubt on his ashen, unimpressed face, and showed me the holes in the base of the walls, here, and there. Then he stood back as I crouched by the wall, rubbing the tips of my fingers together in front of the openings. Within moments the rats responded, first 1, then 4, then 11 came skittering out of the hole, sniffing and licking and nipping at my hands. I knew the dustman thought I had perhaps soaked my fingers in a meat sauce, but it was the musk scent of the us itself which my hands had been seeped, an odor undetectable to any but the rats. Not even I know the smell. The skull-loving sod paid me, then in full, dropping the coins into my outstretched palms as the rats danced nervously about my feet. He clearly saw me with new eyes as I calmly strode out of the building, the rats following me down Barmy Street like hungry spell haunts after a plump wizard. We reached the hive, then the ghastly slags, then the steps half buried under the rubble and the twisting maze of dirt-packed tunnels until we stood amid the august presence of the us. The 11 new rats joined the pack, bringing the total to well over, I'd lost count by this time, but surely at least 110. But it was not to be. 8 tasted freedom and rebellion for the first time, and confused rejected it. They had to be destroyed. 3 remained, still better than last week's disaster return with the rats from the Temple of the Abyss. The fiend lived in those vermin, for they not only refused the us, but managed to tear out 9 of its throats before being slain. But the us grows both in number and intelligence, and as its mental power increased, the day of vengeance on the illithid god-brain draws near, the day for which my race has waited for centuries upon centuries, the day for which I have lived in quiet servitude, the extraordinary reward of my ordinary existence. Damn, well, I love that story, man. It's such a cool presentation of, is he the master or is he the servant? And you'll understand here in a couple more entries when we get to the us. A lot of references to that. Now, real quick, Parakk the Ratcatcher is a Githzerai commoner. He has no real special abilities other than the typical psionics with the Githzerai. He can be found at a tenement in the hive or collecting cranium rats anywhere in Sigil based on what you need him to do. Sorry, kitty. Role-playing him, he's reserved, but it comes from some suppression and fear, not cool confidence. He doesn't want to draw attention to himself. He does not engage in banter, is neither friendly nor rude, and is competent in his job, but otherwise unremarkable. So he doesn't fight, he can't fight, but if he's attacked, the us shows up. I'm not going to say anything else really in regards to... We're just going to leave this story kind of as it is. Once we get to the later entries, I'll refer back to Parakk the Ratcatcher. But yeah, it's a really cool story, interesting non-player character, and this weird synergy, codependence, duality between Parakk and the us, and a greater concept for an adventure and a greater concept for a campaign at large. So normally I'd talk a lot more, especially about an NPC I enjoy, but it's hard to talk about Parakk without giving away the us, and we'll be to that entry soon. So tune in for more. If you've enjoyed Parakk's story, join us later for the us. And you know what? If you enjoyed this, go catch up with everything else. A lot of interesting NPCs that are given within this book. A lot of great adventure ideas. A lot of great world building concepts. And a lot of information just about Planescape, both in theory and in day-to-day practical application in Sigil. So hopefully you're enjoying this the series. Thank you for your time. Likes, follows, subscribes. All those cool things are appreciated. More importantly, join us for the next episode. We'll see you guys soon. Take care.